Good afternoon, Mets fans, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and back after a couple of days of inaction. We've had more snow here, of course, which is lovely, and I want to talk about the last couple of spring training games, the Bryce Harper follow-up to his signing in Philly, and how the roster looks like it might be shaking out as opening day inches closer and closer as the days go by. The last 2 weeks have been pretty busy for me. I've been in and out of town more often than in town, but pretty busy couple of weeks, and I haven't been able to record as many videos as I would have liked. I haven't been doing Mets trivia, which really bothers me, and I'll try to get back to that starting tomorrow, but we'll see what happens with that. I'm not going to make any promises, but I did want to get a video recorded today because there have been a bunch of spring training games played, and yes, it's spring training, and we're not supposed to get that concerned about spring training, but one thing that's been glaring to me about the Mets in these spring training games is just how dreadful the defense has been. The Mets are committing errors at a ridiculous clip. Yesterday they played the Marlins, and I couldn't watch the game, but I listened to it. Actually, no one could watch it because it wasn't on TV, but I did listen to the game. And the Mets committed something like 5 errors in the game, and that's just really dreadful. I mean, you can't be committing that many errors already. The season hasn't even started yet. I don't think the guys are tired or something. Now, the one positive, I mean, I guess, I don't know if positive is the right word, but one thing that's worth mentioning is that a lot of the errors are being made by non-starters. So by minor league guys who are in games. In other words, like late in the game, you know, the third, fourth string replacement third baseman and outfielders and whatever. But the errors are just awful. As I said, 5 errors yesterday. The one part that's glaring to me, and the one offender that's glaring to me most, is Luis Guillorme. Luis Guillorme has been known as a glove-first guy, and boy, he has not been shining with the glove so far this spring. I think he's committed 4 errors already on the spring. And what if they played like 2 weeks worth of games? So, and Guillorme, it's not like he's playing every single game and every single day. He's not getting that many reps. So it concerns me a little bit that Guillorme is regressing with the glove, so it seems. And I hope that's not a sign of things to come for him. I also hope that the fact that the Mets went out and signed Adeiny Hechavarria to be a backup infielder isn't messing with Luis Guillorme at all. Like, where he's not thinking, like, you know, I'm already in the organization and I can play all the same positions as Adeiny Hechavarria, and we probably bring the same amount of value to the field with the bat. So I don't know why Luis Guillorme, continue to be pushed aside for also-rans who bounced between 3 teams last year and signed late as a free agent, whether it be a non-roster invite or not. I don't recall which it was for Hechavarria, but I hope that's not the case, and I hope that Guillorme isn't regressing as a result of his sort of being pushed down the food chain, so to speak, on the Mets depth chart. You might look at that and think of that as the Dom Smith treatment, but I mentioned Dom Smith for a good reason, because Dom has done the opposite, at least this year. Dom Smith has been unbelievably hot with the bat this spring. And yes, it's spring training, and I know the numbers don't mean anything, and we're not supposed to pay attention to them. But dude's batting like 500 right now. And he's making a very difficult, he's forcing a very difficult decision to be made about his future with this organization. Is Dom going to be a guy who could actually play first base for the Mets this year and absolutely make no excuse for the Mets to have to make when it comes to keeping Pete Alonso in AAA to start the year? It certainly seems that way at this point. And the interesting part about it is that it seems to be a result of a CPAP machine. Yes, Dom Smith apparently suffers from really bad sleep apnea, hasn't had it treated properly over the last couple of years, And that's certainly shown in his performance. As it turns out, he's now sleeping correctly. He's getting a full good night's sleep. And for all you kids out there, that's an important thing to get a good night's sleep, obviously, because Smith seems like he's got more pep in his step. He certainly looks like he's in better shape. So I personally love to see Dom Smith coming out and making the serious bid to be on this team and reminding the Mets franchise as to why he was drafted in the first round not 4 or 5 years ago. Dom Smith might end up forcing his way into the conversation. And as I said last week, if nothing else, this hot spring, and perhaps if he gets off to the same kind of start in the regular season, this just adds value to Dom Smith, so that if Pete Alonso is for real, and if the Mets are intending on promoting him at some point early in the season, perhaps Dom Smith builds up enough value that he can be traded in May for someone else's excess player. Not necessarily a bad player, but just a swap of guys who just don't fit in their organizations. There's lots of teams out there that have guys that are in Dom Smith's situation, where, you know, Smith might fit nicely, for example, in Arizona, where, of course, Wilmer Flores is now playing maybe first base. So it'll just be interesting to see how this shakes out with Dom as the spring continues. But I, for one, am rooting for Dom, and I hope he continues his hot hitting, and I hope he's able to carry it into the season. And whether that means he ends up playing his career someplace else, I just hope it's a good fit for him, and that it makes him a better player and a better major leaguer, period. And if it means he's got to do that with an organization other than the Mets, so be it. Last thing I want to talk about is Bryce Harper and the Phillies, of course. A couple of new projections have come out that have that have shot the Phillies to the top of the preseason projections, saying that now the Phillies are the team to beat in the National League East. And, you know, when the news first broke about Harper, I was immediately taken aback by the length of the contract. I was also taken aback by the fact that there are no opt-outs, so that was a big surprise for me. I couldn't believe, and still can't believe, that Scott Boras allowed that to happen. But that's neither here nor there. The real thing that I forgot, frankly, is that the Phillies made a lot of other moves around Bryce Harper. It isn't like they just went out and signed Bryce Harper. They did bring in a lot of good talent. Of course, JT Realmuto went to the Phillies, so he's in their lineup. Gene Segura went to the Phillies. He's now in their lineup. They're going to move Rhys Hoskins to first base, so he'll be more comfortable in the field, which should translate to better production at the plate. Andrew McCutchen, which was their first big signing, which I still think they overpaid for, but regardless, I'm sort of reassessing my feelings about the Phillies. David Robertson, forgot about him to be the closer. So I'm sort of reassessing my feelings about the Phillies and about Harper making a difference. I don't think Harper alone makes a difference, but when you put him in a lineup that has those other guys that I just mentioned, plus Hoskins, plus Odubel Herrera, plus Michael Franco, the Phillies have a pretty deep lineup. And it's better than I thought it was when I first reacted to the Harper signing. So I'm not willing to announce that the Phillies are the team to beat in the National League East. I'm not Jimmy Rollinsing the Phillies for 2019. But I am kind of stepping back and giving them a little bit more respect than I did a week ago when the Harper news broke, and I talked about it last week. So the big Achilles heel for the Phillies is going to be the pitching staff, and I just don't know how deep that starting pitching staff is going to be, how much they're going to get out of Jake Arrieta this year, whether Aaron Nola can duplicate his phenomenal 2018 season. The same question surrounds Jacob deGrom, frankly, for the Mets. Can he duplicate his phenomenal 2018 season? If I'm looking at the two side by side, I'd say that deGrom has more of a track record than Nola has, and that it's possible that Nola suffers from a bit of a sophomore slump, but we'll see how that unfolds as the season unfolds itself, and we'll keep an eye on it. But I'm not willing to announce that the Phillies are the team to beat. I don't know how, and I think SNY has done a good job of sort of covering, and SNY means Mets blog, that is, has done a good job sort of talking about Brodie's philosophy and how he just sort of shrugged off the Harper signing. I agree with shrugging off the Harper signing, because look, the Mets have competed against Bryce Harper in the National League East and have done so with minimal effort. I mean, they have not been killed by Bryce Harper. Have the Nationals been better than the Mets for the most part over the last 6 years? Yeah, they have. But it's not because Bryce Harper was on the Nationals. The Nationals had a better team than the Mets did. And Bryce Harper had, as I've said multiple times, one excellent season. 2015, where he put up unbelievable numbers. Outside of 2015, Bryce Harper has been a good player. He has not been a difference-making player, not been a generational talent like he's been labeled by his agent. So while I'm reassessing my feelings about the Phillies, I am not reassessing my feelings about Bryce Harper. I still believe he's overrated, and I'll need to see him prove that he's not before I change my tune on that. So he's going to have to do better than he did last year and, frankly, the year before, as far as the numbers go, before I can peg him a generational talent and say this guy's deserving of the money and the contract and the fuss that was surrounding him this entire offseason. So that'll wrap it up for this afternoon. I have no idea when I'm going to actually post this video, so if it's tonight, awesome. If it's tomorrow, then that'll be Thursday, which is when you're going to be watching it, so I guess it doesn't make sense that I'm even saying what I'm about to say. So forget it. I'll post this video at some point. You'll see it at some point, and I will thank you in advance for watching it. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at Mr_Met. It's MISTER_MET. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back later this week. And until then, as always, let's go Mets.